Hello everyone, and welcome to this audio podcast. This audio podcast is part of the Pondering. This audio podcast as part of the Bostix, Blitzar, and the specials. This audio podcast is part of the Convey and Maverick, and this audio podcast is part of a ZtormLabostix production. Continuing in on the works by science student Goodwin, who looks at the neurological condition Parkinson's in around a patient case. This audio podcast will sort of delve into some of the research, some aspects of the research. So there are currently more than 138, or more than 148 more than 138 or over 140 sort of pharmacotherapeutic traits of for the symptomatic sort of treatment and stalling of and in around the progression of Parkinson's and Parkinson's symptoms or symptomologies. There has been some gene therapy sort of research. Excuse me. There has been some aspects of gene therapy on the sort of gene therapy works or research looking into the use of adeno-associated viruses or AAV, which has been investigated in the delivering of site-specific pharmacotherapy or pharmacotherapeutics, and AAV vectors, for example, have shown some affinity to transduce neurons in the brain, and therefore investigators have sort of tested the delivery of the use of genes encoding for neurotropic factors in the treatment of Parkinson's. However, at the same time, the validity of the of particular analysis in around AAV in around in around aspects of AAV vectors and gene and sort of molecular genetics and gene therapies or pharmacotherapies. The analysis the analysis or laboratory investigations are questionable, and the clinical advantage cannot be defined sort of indefinitely post clinical trials in phase one, particularly clinical trials phase one trials. There have been works where an author in around 2022 that Goodwin informs of that had identified AV53T mutated SNCA as a familial mutation leading to Parkinson's. Excuse me. Using AAV carrying CRISPR and Cas9 A53T SNCA was able to be deleted. Could be omitted in vitro investigations successfully, and in laboratory animal investigations in vivo. Also highlighted a reduction in the overexpression of alpha synuclein, a sort of dopaminergic neurodegeneration and motor symptoms displayed by those with Parkinson's. And whilst there has been some promising data, the representativeness or the generalizability or the heterogeneity for Parkinson's may lead AAV to sort of trigger some of the inflammatory pathways as part of the immune system of those with Parkinson's or Parkinson's sort of symptoms, and is already, and thus prompts sort of sense of immunocompromisation or immunocompromised recipients, and therefore many recipients with with sort of with sort of aspects of the Parkinson's are less probable to be selected for novel pharmacotherapeutics. That draws this audio podcast to a close. Excuse me. This audio podcast as part of the Pondering. This audio podcast as part of the Bostix and Blitzar and the specials. This audio podcast is part of the Conveyor Maverick, and this audio podcast is part of a ZtormLabostix production.